Okay, arms control is part of this entire process. So what all is the issues in terms of tools for enforcing non-proliferation? Okay, so the NPT I've spoken about. Deepest flaw in that is the nuclear haves and nuclear have-nots. Then along with that, they brought in no nuclear weapons can be delivered if you don't have a delivery mechanism, right? And that is missiles is one of the important components. So they brought in the missile technology control regime. Are we member of the MTCR? What does the MTCR do? Any missile that's above 300 kilometers range cannot be sold to countries that can possibly proliferate. India suffered on one of these issues with respect to cryogenic engine space launch vehicle 1993 and agreement with the Russians. And since we are not part of the MTCR, the Russians were forced to withdraw. Okay, but today we are part of the MTCR thanks to the nuclear deal with the US in 2007. In 2008, we became members of the MTCR. Nuclear Suppliers Group, they do what's known as the forensic research and track all the nuclear materials across the world, right? So that is how they make sure that they do the inspection, they track the material exports from various countries. And this group is largely the countries that possess the technology and the capability in processing those materials as well. It's a group of 48 countries. And here, India was supposed to be inducted as a member. And two countries kept objecting to it. One is China, the other one was New Zealand. Okay, New Zealand. Now, why is that out of 48, 46 are okay, but we still couldn't become an NSG? Why is that? Member of the NSG? Because the NSG laws say you have to have an unanimous acceptance. So even if one member objects, you cannot get in. Right? And that's where we stand. Wassenaar Arrangement. Have you heard this term? Wassenaar Arrangement? Okay, it's another agreement amongst nations which controls largely conventional weapons, including delivery mechanisms. Okay, dual use technologies, these exports are controlled. The Australia group deals with chemical and biological weapons, right? And then, of course, you have the International Atomic Energy Agency. Now, I'm sure you all would be quite familiar with what's happened in Iran and what's happening in Iran with this issue, correct? So, in terms of control, you can see how the arsenals have evolved from 1950 when the nuclear race started off, and this is a peak, 61,682. When the INF Treaty was signed in 87, this was a holding of nuclear weapons in the world. Okay, we could have destroyed Earth many times over with these weapons. Then we've started reducing it now, and START is another arms strategic talks on arms reduction treaty. All right, START 1 and START 2 also puts a focus on reducing ballistic missiles and longer range weapons and other weapons. So we started reducing it. So today we've come to less than 10,000. And now there is a talk of starting the new START. Russia has the maximum and followed by the US. China has about 500 warheads or 600 warheads as of the latest one. And China now has changed their philosophy and they now are modernizing their nuclear weapons, warheads, and by 2030 they are expected to have about 1,000 warheads, which will be more or less similar to what the US has. Right, Pakistan has about close to 200, 180 or so. We also have something similar. And Israel, I told you, has about 200. North Korea probably will have about 50 or 70 or whatever it is, right? These are the different dimensions of the non-proliferation aspect. But actually this has been brought out when at the peak of their unipolar hegemony, the US proposed this, how they would go about controlling and checking out, get the freedom to check anyone, inspect anyone for the weapons of mass destruction under a scheme called Proliferation Security Initiative. India didn't agree to it, so did many other countries. So this has fallen through. Okay, this is one of the other export control regimes are, now I've explained all of this. So you have under weapons of mass destruction, NPT, biological warfare, weapons convention, the chemical weapons convention, Australia group, nuclear suppliers group, MTCR, Wassenaar arrangement. These are all the schemes that actually, along with that, you put in now nuclear free zones, which I've explained to you, right? All those maroon colored ones are nuclear free zones. And the objective is to increase these nuclear free zones and keep narrowing down the weapons who would have. But that's a difficult task. What we are seeing is probably it will go even more. 9 will increase to 16 over the next 30-year time frame. So in terms of testing, pretty much nobody tests now. We've come to a capability where a situation where we don't need to test effectively, but that doesn't mean people are not testing and modernizing. Well, technology today is advanced so much that you can do a lab testing effectively and keep modernizing your warheads and miniaturizing your warheads. And therefore, what has enabled all that development process is also these treaties, starting off from a partial test ban treaty, NPT and CTBT. Okay, so we pushed people to minimize the physical testing that is required. So the proliferation risks are as indicated here. It's horizontal, vertical, and also non-state actors. It's only a matter of time you have, like one of these Al Qaeda guys was a very well educated scientist actually, and even with very simple capabilities available, they are able to put together drones, etc. So it's a matter of time this may happen, and that's the biggest threat that everybody is concerned about. But more important is in the entire nuclear weapons safety issue, command and control, double checks, and what's known as they have a system called permissive action links. It's a key system, and multiple redundancies given in terms of safety. But with the kind of cybersecurity threats that are emerging today, that's a bigger threat as well, right? So they're conscious of that. Okay, the NPT issues I've already explained, so I'll rush through this part. These are all the data that's given here. All that is what I covered here in these slides.